For years, I built my business around an old version of me, an old identity. What people expected me to work in, my old experience, the old sector I worked in. And after a while, it became the story I told myself of that's the person you have to be. But soon enough, I realized actually there's a new version of me that's emerging through this wonderful business that I've built over the last 10 years. And it's time for me to step into that. And today I'm going to talk about a real personal journey about what it takes to step into a new version of you and let go of the old stories that you tell about yourself to yourself. Welcome back to the Second Voice podcast, where we uncover the conversations that leaders don't have out loud. And I'm your host, Luisa Hogan. And this is season 3, the start of season 3. I can't believe we've made it to 3 seasons. I feel like that's such a huge achievement. And I am so excited to bring you a little bit of a fresh season with some new ideas brought in as we explore how leaders talk to themselves, what challenges leaders face in building their businesses or leading teams, and what that sounds like from a real perspective. But today, in this solo episode, I'm getting really deep and personal about my journey in building my own business over almost 10 years. I can't believe Vermelho is almost 10 years old. But I want to talk about the stories that I have been telling myself that I only recently started changing as I've looked forward as to the new way forward for my business and for me and what I want to build, and how long I've been repeating some stories to myself about who I am and what my business is about and what I'm meant to be doing. And it's really interesting because many of you already know my story of how I built Vermelho. I started Vermelho after I had inherited a CEO role to a failing organization, and over the period of a year, I had to try and save it or close it. And that organization eventually did close. But the story I was telling myself then was nobody's ever going to want to employ a CEO who was responsible for winding up an organization. And how wrong I was, because over the last 10 years, all I have done is work with CEOs who want to not go through the same thing. And Vermelho was born from, well, I am going to start my own work and try and help other leaders through this situation. And the story I told myself then was the kind of people I need to work with are people in the kind of sectors that I had worked in. I had done some corporate stuff, but some community services stuff, education stuff. So I thought I had to work in that space. I had just worked in a consulting practice. So, I thought these are the kinds of people that are going to want to work with me. It was also where my network was. Everybody I knew were in those sectors. So, of course, when you're starting a business, you're going to tap into the network and the people that you already know. And you have to do that, especially if you're starting a service-based business, a consulting business. So that's what I did. But because of that, it became this story that I told myself. And the other story I started telling myself was on my pricing. Because I worked with, maybe 60 to 70% of my clients were in the community services, not-for-profit sector at the time. I thought that I had to have my fees had to be at a reasonable base for those kinds of businesses to be able to afford me. And I want to tell you an interesting thing. That story I told myself, even after I started shifting to working with more corporates, big, medium enterprise that are actually national across the whole of Australia. I started working with founders who are scaling their businesses. I'm probably now more like 40% community sector, not-for-profit sector, and 60% other kinds of businesses. But for almost 10 years, I never raised my prices because the story I had told myself was I have to be affordable so that these businesses can afford to work with me. It's wild to me. And I only realized this. So I didn't do that for 10 years. I only realized this over the last couple of years where I'm like, actually, no, I the kind of work that I do is amazing. And I'm working with so many people that I can raise my fees for the work that I'm doing. I deliver some really great outcomes and I can raise my fees for that. But it's amazing how that story you tell yourself can hold you back. And the other thing I was doing, because I my experience over 15 years experience, executive experience, was in a mix of medium enterprise and not-for-profit community spaces, large not-for-profits and community spaces, and then a couple of small ones. I had told myself the story that that's who my clients had to be. And I started shifting away from that and realized actually my expertise isn't held by the story that I told myself about who I was allowed to work with. And those stories came from working in those spaces. And when you're building your career, well, in the old days, because I don't think Gen Zs do this. Gen Zs are so much more amazing at just being comfortable with switching. So if you're a Gen Z listening to this, I hope there are some. I'm so amazed by you, how you can switch through careers. But, I'm a Gen X, elder millennial, and for us, it was about you pick your career and you pick the sectors that you work in and you build your way up through that. And so the story that I told myself was, even though I'm building my own business, like I'm stuck with the kinds of clients that I'm used to working with. And it really started to hold me back, because I started to not so much enjoy some of the work that I was doing, but it was the story that I kept repeating to myself. But then there was also this realization that I was protecting myself. It was a little bit of a comfort zone. I can work in those spaces so easily, like with my eyes closed. I know how those organizations work. I know the issues that they have. Like, they're all the same issues. If you go from one sector to the other, that's the similar issues. I was just in this old comfort zone. And I was protecting myself from looking silly, because if I step out of this area that I work in and start finding clients or working in this area, what if I don't get it? What if I look silly? And it's so strange, because I even went out before I even started my business. I got an MBA, and the reason why I got an MBA is because I wanted to be more credible in more corporate spaces and meet people in the corporate area. But it's so funny, because you know what I did? I stayed stuck in that space of community services, not-for-profit and medium enterprise, because I thought that's what I know. And I never pushed myself out of that comfort zone. And the interesting thing was, when I really started to realize how much I've shifted and how I've started to stop telling myself those stories, is I went to a huge event, and it was a corporate women event. It was mostly all women there, but they were all CEOs in the corporate space. There were hardly any there that were in the old space that I used to work in. And it's funny, I knew a number of them there, and it was in that moment I was like, actually, I know a few people here. So that was one. But when I first walked in, I felt like the imposter. I'm like, what am I doing here? These are all people who are so much more important than me. And I felt this moment of like, what am I doing here? This is not the space that I work in. And then I realized, actually, I know a few people here. And B, I don't have to prove anything to these people here. I don't have to fit in with them, because I am me. I don't have to be anything else than who I am. And I don't have to be ashamed about my past, but also not afraid of stepping into this new visibility, new way of being that isn't necessarily the CEO. I'm not a corporate CEO, but I'm building my business to be an amazing, scaled, huge consulting practice that's going to do so well in the space that I work in, right? So it was then that I started to go, oh man, what have I been doing? Why do I think that? You need to put yourself out of your comfort zone for a minute to realize, hey, I've been sitting in my comfort zone for such a long time, and I'm protecting that comfort because it's easy for me. And so over the last couple of years, I've really been committing to raising my fees to what I deserve and not being afraid, not letting that first voice tell me, oh, you don't deserve that. They're not going to want to pay that to you. You're going to lose clients. You're not going to get any work. You're going to have to hustle for more work. I let that go. I'm like, nope, this is my fee. If you can't afford it, that's bad. And maybe we can work something out. But my fee is my fee, because these are the outcomes you're going to get. And that fee deserves that outcome. And I started also looking forward, and it's like I rebranded Vermelho. Vermelho, it's 9.5 years old. It's had the same logo, the same branding colors for 9.5 years. It just became the same thing, but it was stuck in the old version of me and why I set up Vermelho. And I started to really look forward, hopefully, especially after I wound up my second business, I started to look forward and go, hey, like, here's my opportunity to focus fully on one business again and go, what is the direction that I want this business to take? And I knew that the branding wasn't right anymore, and I wanted it to step into this new identity that I have been building, and especially with looking to scaling and where I want to go with my business in the next 3 years. It's not where the business has been, and it's in the same space, but it's evolved, and my work has evolved, my knowledge has evolved, my expertise has evolved, the people I've worked with have evolved, and I need to stop telling myself that old story. That baseline of where I've come is no longer my baseline. I have a new baseline. I have a new identity. I have a new, fresh perspective of where I want to go. And I'm so hopeful and excited. And yes, some people might be looking at me going, this is new. Well, absolutely darn right it's new, because that's what you do as you grow and evolve. You're never going to be stuck in the same place unless you tell yourself all of those stories all the time, and you get stuck in those old stories of who you are, who you're supposed to be, who knows you, who's your network. And now I'm growing my network to people that I would never have engaged with 10 years ago, never even thought of engaging with them and networking with them, and still keeping in touch with some of the people that have been so important in my journey and been in my network over this time. But I'm so excited to expand myself. This year has been so much about expansion and visibility for me. And it is about time that I step away from those old stories that I told myself. But there's work that needs to happen internally, where if you want to go through something like this too, the work that you have to do internally to allow yourself to do this is you have to really start switching off that self-doubt switch and start going, what's true here? What's a fact? What's the reality? And then you have to go, where do I actually want to be? And is this baseline that I've been at holding me back? And is this identity going to be the thing that always brings me back to that baseline of this is what I can charge and these are the people I can work with and this is the way that my career is going to go? And you need to be able to turn that self-doubt off and work on that internally so that you can step into this new version of you that's becoming. And so many triggers have happened for that internally for me, and where I've, speaking at the Women Thrive Summit, to so many thousands of people, starting this podcast. This is season 3. I didn't know if I was even going to get past season 1. I am fully, this season is fully recorded up until the end of season 3 and in the start of season 4, by the way. And now I have the space to add extra bits like this in to the season so that you get the max out of these podcast episodes, little short clips. And so the internal work that you have to do is going, is this my reality? What's my baseline? And how can I step into this new version of me, which is going to be uncomfortable, by the way, and scary and way out of your comfort zone. And you have to not be afraid of failing and not be afraid of looking silly and looking cringe, because you're going to feel cringe when you step out of your old identity and into a new one. And then it becomes your new baseline. And then you're probably going to have to do the work again. So what does the real me look like for me now? Well, I'm not an old CEO that worked in the community sector and medium enterprise. I'm not that person. I'm a 10-year business leader who works with executive teams and founders across multiple sectors, and they all want to work with me. I'm an amazing speaker. I do amazing speaking work, and I am not speaking for free anymore. I have decided that I don't speak. I speak at 4 strategic free events a year, and the rest of my events will have to be paid, because I need to step into that version of myself that does a great job at speaking at events and inspiring people. I am a podcaster and somebody who has their own ideas and likes to talk to other people with their own ideas and their own journeys. I am the CEO of my business. It's scaling. I've got a couple of associate consultants who are working with me. I want to grow that business more, and I'm going to have a wonderful steady leadership hub where people can go to and experience experiential programs that they can learn how they operate under pressure and then work on what to do about it. So I'm so excited about that, about building those resilient leaders who are capable of performing well under pressure and understanding what their triggers are and how they actually perform under pressure. So I'm that CEO, I'm that podcaster, I'm that speaker. I am somebody who's thinking about things every day, learning every day. I'm a mother. I became a mother halfway through my business. When my business was 5 years old, I became a mother, which is wild too, because I am not that same person who started that business, but I was still stuck in that identity. It's so wild. Even thinking about it just makes me laugh. And I am all of those amazing things. I have an amazing husband who I met just before I started this business, and he's seen me grow through all of that. So that's what the real me looks like now. I'm excited to bring this me, my new branding that I launched a few months ago, my new strategy for my company. It's gone from, and this is the other thing, I started my business as a sole trader. As of this year, it is transitioning to be a company structure. It's not going to be just me anymore. Even that is stepping into a new identity, a new me. I'm not a sole trader doing my little service coaching business. I'm not a coach. That's the other thing. I kept calling myself a coach, and then I thought about it. Wow, I am really not a coach. I don't coach people through things and ask the right questions, get them to come up with the answers. I mentor people. I bring my own experience, my own learning that I commit to every day. Multiple diplomas and degrees and a master's degree. That's what I bring to the work that I do with you. But I don't just want to be a mentor. I'm also a consultant, an advisor. I do advisory work. Wow, 10 years ago, I'd never have said those things about myself. Never. So if you are sitting there and you are waiting to step into a new version of you and you don't know what to do, my advice to you is to look deep within yourself. Understand what your baseline is. Imagine who you want to be, and then ask, is that person going to accept what I'm accepting now? Does that person accept the fees I'm accepting? Does that person accept the contracts I'm expecting? Does that person accept the promotion I'm accepting? And when you can put yourself in that future version and then look back to what you're doing now, and if that person would say no, then you should not be doing that thing, and you need to start leveling up what you're doing with your decisions. So short and sweet today. The second voice inside every leader is only as powerful as the stories that you tell yourself and that you allow yourself to keep telling about yourself. And the moment you stop believing those old stories about you is when you finally get to choose, this is actually me. This is actually me. So I hope you enjoy season 3. Amazing leaders that I'm speaking to. They all have their own journeys, some incredible, powerful journeys, and also some great advice and great lessons from experts in all of these areas. I'm sure you'll enjoy them, and I will see you at season 3. Take care.